Ma'am, your sister is facing some serious allegations. Is it not time for a full investigation?
I thought it was incredibly interesting. Are you going to comment at all on the stories about your sister? Yeah.
Ma'am, what are you doing?
Sorry, excuse me. Keep going. Excuse me, please. Thank you.
Just say a few words.
Thank you. Excuse us, please.
Do the allegations of political fundraising malfeasance in your province do anything to discourage girls from taking part in politics? What about a little accountability, Premier?
Oh boy, that looks awful. That's Premier Alison Redford of Alberta just walking stone-faced as a pack of reporters ask her about the fact that, well, her sister, who works for the government also, was diverting taxpayers' money to the PC party. It's crazy. Joining me now from Calgary to talk about this is the dinger, Rick Bell of the Calgary Sun. Hey, Rick, welcome back to the show. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ezra.
Oh, that was painful. It reminded me of when Stephen Duckett of the Alberta Health Services did a painful walk with cameras rolling, refusing to answer questions. He was sacked later for that perp walk.
And at least he was eating a cookie at the time.
That's right.
That was an excuse. But you know, this just to get on that for just a second, though, that attitude of walking away, this is not the first time or the second time or the fifth time. And outside the legislature, this is the attitude with the media. And inside the legislature, when she decides to appear, which is one day this week, the questions are rarely answered by her. They're answered by her deputy premier, who spends most of the time either not answering the questions or trying to ask the opposition questions instead of answering the questions. So this thing is... You know, I never would have believed back in the days of Ed Stelmach that I could actually say things would go downhill. But I'm on a toboggan right now, and I'm just trying to hang on for dear life.
Well, you know, Alberta at one point in time had clearly the cleanest government in the country under Ernest Manning, who had a very, he was like a very minimalist Christian preacher is what he was. I mean, the idea of a scandal, for 25 years he was premier, not one scandal. How the province has changed, it feels a little bit like Quebec, but not with the mafia, you know, having bribes and extortion, but really, hey, it's a family, 100 grand for you, 50 grand for you. My sister will be the boss of healthcare. We'll go for, I mean, Alison Redford and Lynn Redford went for a meal together, a girls' night out, the two sisters, and they billed it to the taxpayer. It feels so un-Albertan.
Well, yeah, and then she was billing things to, you know, she helped set up a Tory MLA barbecue in which they bought the drinks and, of course, the mix, and even bought the bug spray. The taxpayers of Alberta fought for all the bugs that were at the barbecue. And there were many, and not all of them of the insect variety. And there was also, you know, going to Tory conventions, all under the name, of course, of government relations. And at the same time, Ezra, this was revealed a couple of days ago, 3 years ago, an MLA stood up in the legislature and asked the health minister of the time, a guy by the name of Ron Leipert, exactly who do we go to if we have problems in the healthcare system and we want to sort of find out who the go-to person is? Lynn Redford. It was stated. And it was stated that Lynn Redford was a person, and her bloodlines with Alison Redford, who was then the Attorney General, were good.
Yeah,
and so now the Wild Rose has, so not only is Lynn Redford being, you know, they're talking about how can you expense Tory stuff and put it on the taxpayer tab, and why is it that the Alberta Health Services, supposedly arm's length but not really, hasn't revealed all of the executive spending for the last several years, which they have not done, because there's a lot there. This is just the beginning of a very, very, very dark story that started with a guy who ran up $346,000 in lavish expenditures. Yeah. So, I mean, that's still going on. And at the same time, we have this Q-jumping probe that's going to start in a couple of weeks, in which Lynn Redford, the Wild Rose is now asking Lynn Redford to be called as the first witness. They've written a letter to the judge heading up the panel because she might be the go-to person between politicians and the health region as far as how you get medical care. And this is something your old pal Stephen Duckett, when he was Alberta Health Services boss, he has now pointed out that when he took over, there were go-to people around who were there to facilitate, quote, discrete waiting list adjustments on request from MLAs. Now, I'm not saying Lynn Redford did that, but it would be interesting, and this is what people are saying now, including myself, including Wild Rose, including the opposition. Even the NDP has come out and said, Premier, what did you know? When did you know it? Of course, she's not around to answer this question, or it's put to another person and it's just stick-handled through and nothing ever happens. So nobody's accusing anybody of anything. We're just having question, 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 and the questions are not going away. There's more of them, and they multiply by the day.
Well, Rick, we only have 30 seconds left, but I got one question for you, and that is this.
Absolutely.
You're mad, I'm mad, the Calgary Sun is mad, and the opposition is mad, but do severely normal Albertans beavering away in their real lives, do they care? Will this make a whit of political difference, or will Alison Redford just ride this out and who cares?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think it is fatiguing. I think there is a time when people, taxpayers, just get fatigued day after day after day. So even if you aren't paying attention because you're working so hard and you're paying taxes and you're raising your kids and obeying the law and doing all that good stuff, over time, I think, if this continues unabated, unanswered, handled improperly, poorly, I think over time, the idea that this government is out of touch, arrogant, and did not take the right lesson from the election as they got in through the hair of their chinny chin chin and not because of some great mandate, I think it will make a difference if this continues.
Rick Bell from the Calgary Sun, thanks very much for making the time for us today.